They say laughter is the best medicine. In my case, it was also the perfect weapon. But let me start at the beginning. It all started with a dream. My wife and I wanted to give our kids, Sarah and Tom, something special. A place where they could laugh, jump, and just be kids. That's when we decided to buy a trampoline. You know, those things that are synonymous with childhood joy. We placed it gently in our backyard, not too close to the fence, not too visible from the street, just perfect for our little ones. We thought it was a great way for them to exercise, have fun, and blow off some steam after school. Plus, who doesn't love a good jump session? But we had no idea the nightmare that this seemingly innocent trampoline would morph into. You see, where we lived had a homeowners association, one of those entities that watches over neighborhoods with the eagle eye of a hawk and the patience of a saint. Or maybe not a saint. Every detail mattered in our community, from the color of your front door to the type of grass you had to have on your lawn. If you didn't cut your grass to the HOA-approved length, you got a warning. If your hedges weren't perfectly trimmed, you faced a penalty. If your pet happened to bark twice in a row, you'd get a fine that could make a grown man cry. And oddly enough, apparently, trampolines were in their list of forbidden things. Who knew? I mean, we didn't have a clue. Otherwise, we wouldn't have made that purchase. The first letter arrived like a thunderclap on a sunny day. We were having lunch when my wife opened it. Her face went pale as a ghost. The letter, which was sealed with the HOA's emblem, looked like an official document from the government. It stated that our trampoline was in violation of community guidelines and had to be removed within 72 hours. Apparently, trampolines were considered safety hazards and obstructed the aesthetic beauty of our neighborhood. I laughed it off. I thought it was a mistake. Maybe someone was pulling a prank. Surely they'd understand when I explained. But I was wrong. Dead wrong. After the initial letter, we received fines. First, it was $100, then $500. Now, I'm not one to back down. I mean, what's life without a bit of stubbornness? So I decided to fight. I read through the HOA documents looking for loopholes. I spoke to neighbors, gauging their feelings. I even contacted local lawyers to get a sense of my options. But the longer I fought, the more the fines mounted. And with each fine, my anger grew. I realized it wasn't just about the trampoline. It was about standing up to an entity that thought it could tell me how to live in my own house. It was about protecting my kids' right to have a backyard full of laughter and joy. But what could I do? I couldn't afford a lengthy court battle, and I couldn't keep paying the fines forever. Just when I felt defeated, an idea struck me. A crazy, audacious idea, but sometimes that's what it takes to win a war. If the HOA was bothered by the aesthetics of my trampoline, what if I gave them something even more eye-catching? Something they couldn't possibly object to? Something that combined fun, community, and a whole lot of laughter? That's when I had my eureka moment. What if instead of taking down the trampoline, I built a full-blown carnival in my backyard? It was ambitious, yes. Crazy. Absolutely. But wasn't it time for me to fight fire with fire? I took my plan to my neighbors, explaining my idea and asking for their support. To my surprise, they were in. Most of them had been secretly itching to express themselves against the HOA. This trampoline gave them the perfect opportunity. With the backing of my community, I assembled the most spectacular backyard carnival this side of town. I purchased classic carnival games like ring toss and duck pond. I rented a popcorn and cotton candy machine, hired a DJ, and even arranged for a few rides, including a small Ferris wheel and a carousel. The transformation of my backyard was remarkable. One minute, it was a normal suburban backyard. The next, it looked like a scene from a storybook. I set the grand opening for a Friday evening and sent out invitations to my neighbors and friends. As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows across the neighborhood, people started trickling in. Before long, my backyard was filled with the sounds of children's laughter, the joyful screams from the rides, and the comforting aroma of popcorn and cotton candy. My wife and I watched it all unfold with a mix of pride and amusement. We never imagined our fight with the HOA would unite our community in such a wonderful way. But the party didn't last long. By the next morning, I had a new visitor, this time a stern-looking gentleman wearing a badge. He introduced himself as an inspector sent by the HOA and informed me that my backyard carnival was in violation of several community ordinances. Apparently, hosting a public event in my backyard without a permit was illegal. Plus, the rides and games were deemed safety hazards and the music had exceeded the noise limit for residential areas. He handed me a hefty stack of citations and warned me of more penalties to come. As he walked away, I felt a surge of emotions, anger, frustration, but mostly determination. I wasn't just fighting for myself or even just my trampoline anymore. I was fighting for every resident in my community who had ever been silenced by the HOA. The following weeks were a whirlwind. The HOA took swift and severe action. They called the cops on my carnival, slapped me with more fines, and even threatened to take me to court. At this point, the fines were piling up and the stress was taking a toll on my health and my marriage. My wife was worried. She urged me to settle, to just pay the fines and be done with it. But I couldn't give up. Not only because I loved the carnival and the joy it brought to my community, but because I needed to prove that one person can make a difference. One evening, as I was setting up new lights for the carnival, I noticed a familiar face lurking near the fence. It was the HOA president, Mr. Williams. Our eyes met, and I saw not just annoyance, but pure animosity. I knew then that there was more to this conflict than just rules and regulations. There was a personal vendetta. Williams wanted to crush me, not because he had a problem with my trampoline, but because he had a problem with me. That realization fueled my determination. I rallied my neighbors, calling for a community meeting. Everyone showed up, not just my friends and family, but even some of the more reserved neighbors. Together, we formed a united front, ready to stand up to the HOA and demand answers. I invited Mr. Williams to attend the meeting, and when he showed up, looking smug and self-assured, I grilled him with questions. Why had he singled me out? What was his beef with my carnival? His answers, if you can call them that, were evasive, unprofessional, and insulting. In the end, he offered no real explanation, just more threats and warnings. That was my breaking point. I realized then that this wasn't about a trampoline, a carnival, or even a homeowners association. It was about power, control, and the abuse of authority. I vowed then to fight until I won. And fight I did. With the support of my neighbors, I took my case to the local news stations. Within days, my story was on the nightly news, captivating audiences and drawing sympathy from viewers across the city. Overnight, I went from being just another homeowner to being the face of a community movement against oppressive HOA rules. Mr. Williams panicked. He tried to settle, offering apologies and retractions, but it was too late. The damage was done. People had heard my story and they were on my side. Eventually, the HOA caved in. They rescinded the fines, apologized for their actions, and agreed to relax some of their stricter rules. My carnival stayed, and for the next few months, my backyard was the epicenter of community fun and unity. Families gathered, children played, and laughter echoed through the neighborhood. In the end, it wasn't just about winning a fight. It was about building a community. The fight over the trampoline had brought us closer together, proving that one man's seemingly insignificant backyard project could ignite a revolution. Looking back, I wouldn't trade it for the world. Sure, it was stressful, but the joy it brought to my kids, my neighbors, and my community was priceless. Sometimes all it takes is a little audacity, a lot of heart, and a trampoline to beat the system.